So we've talked about the standard general openings and some of the more risky and all-in openings you can do in the last video. In this video I'd like to talk about the general game flow you have to expect when doing the sort of normal game. So this means you have to have certain goals in mind as a Marine commander for the early game, the mid game, and then the end game and the phase where you just go for the hives. So let's just start with the early game. Your main objective should be to establish your economy and get the upgrades out, but also to pressure the harvesters as much as you can. This is not as easy as it sounds, of course. It's really hard to find a right balance between being having guys cap RTs and defend them, and also having guys attack them. Depending on how you want to play, you can play it a bit more offensively, or you can play it a bit more defensively. But you never ever want to delay pressure on alien harvesters for too long. You should always start getting some pressure on. Most of the times, even in the first minute, but never longer than 2, maybe 3 minutes. If you wait that long, aliens will have too easy of a game to play because they can just focus on killing your RTs and not worry about having to defend as long as you stay too defensive. So this is something you need to keep an eye on as a Marine commander. You have to go with the flow, as I suppose, but you also have to ask your Marines if they have been able to kill harvesters. Sometimes it's not easy to keep check with all of that yourself. And if you feel like you have not been pressuring enough lately, this is the time when maybe you should just, instead of capping RTs, just send like 2 men straight to a harvester and just skip the RT building, just so you can get some pressure on and draw some skulls back. So yeah, it's about racing the other team for upgrades and making sure you are prepared for the mid game, which I consider to be when the fates pop out. You could consider lurks to be sort of a timing for the mid game as well, but I think lurks are not as don't have as big of an effect as fates have. Of course, they can make it much harder for you to pressure harvesters and be annoying in general, but even just one Marine LMG with decent aim can do enough damage on a single lurk to make him retreat, or maybe even if the lurk overextends and you get some med spam on the Marine, he can kill it one-on-one. The only thing you should consider doing as a Marine commander is when there are maybe 2 lurks, double lurk, or maybe even 3 lurks. I've seen some teams do that. Then this might be a good idea to just go for the shotguns, and this would be the only change in your plans you should consider. But when the fates are about to pop out, this is when the game starts to change a bit more, because you need to be prepared with phase gates especially. It's really hard to get phase gates set up if you have to deal with fates, so it's better to set them up beforehand. And you generally want to have a really strong phase gate triangle before the phase pop out as well. So the early game, try to get upgrades, armor 1, weapons 2, maybe shotguns. That would be okay. More upgrades would be better, but if you can get armor 1, weapons 2, shotguns by like the 6-minute mark, that's pretty good. 7-minute mark, still okay. This is a time when you definitely should start getting the ops and researching phase gates. And about the 8-minute mark is probably most of the timings the phase will come out. You need to get the triangle set up on and cross, and then hopefully one offensive one. If you can take it, you should always try to do that. If it's pretty hard for you to set up phase gates, like you send 2 guys to here, they try to build it, but they get cleared out, and then the phase pop out, and you find it's really hard to get a foothold on the map, it's better to just do the sort of rush phase gates with like 4 Marines, just grouping up, send 4 Marines into one location, drop the PG, parallel build it. If they decide to attack base or something else, you can phase back and you have the phase gate set up. And you can do the same for a second PG. You can like keep maybe 2 guys on defense, send 3 guys to another location, just drop the PG, parallel build it, and then you can, if it's full, if it still has a harvester or maybe a Rip and a Kragan here, just ignore it. Just build a PG, get it up, and once it's up, you can clear out the stuff and you can get reinforced if you need to be. And once the PGs are set up, in case you lost some of the RTs behind the lines, this is the time you can start recapping. In general, I would recommend not having more than 2 Marines recap at one time. Even just 1 Marine is most of the times enough. Once you have phase gates, you need to defend those, because these will be holding your map control. These will be your opportunities to trap fades as well, which is really important in the end game if you want to go for the hives. If you are able to trap maybe 1 fade, 2 fade, you can have a really nice opportunity to just push for a hive and get it down. If the fades keep alive, it's gonna be hard to push on a hive. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's generally better if you can trap some life forms, which is the really important thing as a Marine as well, as a commander, to spot those opportunities. You should be looking for engagements all the time. If your Marine is busy with a 1 fade on one side, on one location, you should be looking at the positions of their other Marines and just telling them where they need to go in order to trap the fades. Good Marines on the field will look for those opportunities themselves, but they might be preoccupied with other stuff, so you have the overview. You should be aware of any nice opportunity to trap a high life form, and you should try to take it, because killing life forms is the main objective in the mid game. Then at about maybe 12-minute mark, you should consider doing a push on a hive, because a bit later the Jonas will pop out, and then it will be a bit tougher for you to hold the map control. So you might want to consider ending the game before the Jonas pop out. If you kill some fades, then it's a really clear choice. The moment you kill some fades and you have at least weapons 2 armor, or armor 1 or shotguns, this is a time you want to push on a hive. It's no point delaying it further and getting more upgrades, because you will already have a stronger position if you kill the fades and have the upgrades. This is the ideal time to push for a hive. If the aliens have 2 hives, then you'll just have to take it with 1 and get a PG set up here, and then slowly move up to the other side and try to take down the second hive. If they are just on 1 hive all the time, then you might even consider rushing it even when the fades are still up. Because if you send 5 Marines in here and you maybe have like something like cat packs research specifically for the push, then even 2 fades trying to defend can have a really hard time, and you might be able to take that last hive, the 1 hive down, even with all the aliens defending it. But it's a bit more risky. In general, you want to kill the life forms first if you can. If you cannot, you're just gonna have to either go for the long game and like reinforce every PG with sentries and get arcs out, and maybe get ready for the Jonas by going for jetpacks or cat packs, and then you can play the long game. If you don't want to play the long game, you have to try to keep an eye on the timer and just go for the hives before the Jonas pops out. So I hope this will give you an idea of what you should try to do when you're commanding games, other than just the opening splits and general tech advice. I hope this will make it a bit easier for you to win games, and in later videos I'll talk about some more map specific strategies, and also make a video with some general tips and tricks for Marine commanders, and I hope you will give it a view as well.